Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you all for coming today as we mark not just the winding down of another academic year, but the completion of the university's most recent strategic direction covering the years 2014 to 2019. I want to welcome as well everyone who is watching via live stream in Truro, St. John, and elsewhere. I'm here today with Provost Teri Balser to look back at some of the highlights from the past few years, to celebrate the great work that's been done in bringing this strategic direction to life, and to talk a little bit about what comes next. Before we begin, I would like to note a few of the other members of the senior administration who've joined us in this room, and I'd ask them to give a wave or otherwise call attention to themselves when I mention their name. Vice President Finance and Administration, Ian Nason. Vice President Advancement, Peter Fardy. Associate Vice President Graham Gagnon, Assistant Vice President Government Relations and Economic Development Matt Hebb, Acting Assistant Vice President Communications and Marketing Janet McMillan, University Secretary and Director of the University Secretariat Susan Brousseau, General Counsel and Managing Director, Legal Counsel Office John Hope. I think he was going to be a little late. I haven't seen him yet, but he will be joining us. Vice President Student Affairs, Ivan Joseph. Assistant Vice President Human Resources, Jasmine Walsh, along with many others who I'm so pleased to see today. Thank you again all for joining us. This is a really exciting time of transition for Dalhousie, not just in leadership and in planning, but from our 200th anniversary celebrations to our 3rd century of achievement. What brings us together today is a shared commitment to the mission of this fine university, to the power of teaching and learning, of research and of service. Working together, this community built this strategic direction up from the 100 days of listening, turning it into a robust university plan based on action and accountability. And the results truly showcase the best of what Dalhousie can do. Today's format will be similar to what former President Florizone shared in the past, with one difference. Rather than only look back at the past year, we're going to look back through highlights from the entire 5-year plan. We'll talk about each of the 5 key strategic areas: teaching and learning, research, and service, the pillars of our mission, with the support areas of partnership and reputation and people, infrastructure, and support. Following that, I'll hand things over to Dr. Balser to discuss next steps in developing our next strategic plan, and we'll have some time then for questions. We can't cover everything in today's presentation, but if you visit dal.ca/June update in the coming days, you'll be able to access both the 5-year report and the annual progress report. Teaching and learning. Teaching and learning represent the heart of our academic mission, and Dal's strategic direction, quite rightly, placed some of its highest emphasis on building a stronger learning experience and improved supports for our students. We have seen steady growth in enrollment, a 2.3% increase since the start of the strategic direction in 2014. As of December 2018, enrollment was at a record level of 19,148 students. By the way, when I was a student here, it was 4,000 students, but that's a little beyond the 5-year horizon, I know. But we do see the trend in enrollment, and we see it continuing into next year. One of our key priorities was to improve student retention, supporting more students to continue in their studies past first year. Since the start of our strategic direction, first to second year retention has remained steady at 84%. There is room to improve here, and there's a great deal of variation among faculties. But today we have a much better understanding of the challenges students face with retention and far more supports to help address them, from integrating career and academic advising in the Bissett Student Success Center to the comprehensive On Track program to support student success. We continue to excel and innovate in academic programming, achieving accreditation in 54 externally accredited programs and launching 24 new degrees and majors, 8 minors, and 28 new certificates and diplomas. We have welcomed new leadership, like Provost Balser and Vice Provost Ivan Joseph, joining us in the past year. And we continue to have our academic excellence recognized nationally and internationally. One example from the past year was celebrating Earth Sciences Anne-Marie Ryan for being named a 3M Teaching Fellow. That, by the way, is the highest teaching award, not just locally, but in the entire country. Our faculty receive an array of local, national, and international awards, but moreover, they allow our students to succeed. Every student who graduates from Dalhousie is able to do so in part because of the support and guidance they receive from our faculty. Then there are our Rhodes Scholars. There's an extraordinary number, by the way. 4 in 5 years, bringing Dal's total number to 91. And that's more than all but a handful of other North American universities. One of the areas of academic growth at Dalhousie has been in Indigenous education, with faculties and departments inspired by the calls to action of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission to find new ways to incorporate Indigenous perspectives and teachings into the Dalhousie learning experience. Here's one interdisciplinary example, a pilot course from this past year on cultural safety in Indigenous health for nursing, medicine, and dentistry students.
There's a lot of misinformation and stereotypes that really affect us. So I think any education to understand us more will really contribute to the betterment of not only our health and our communities, but Canada as a whole.
The Introduction to Cultural Safety in Healthcare for Indigenous Peoples course originated as a result of the Aboriginal Children's Hurt and Healing Initiative, as well as the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action that require medical and nursing students in schools across Canada to take a course around cultural safety and the history of Indigenous peoples in Canada.
It's imperative that course participants understand the Indigenous way of life.
So I think the most important thing that we learned was looking at how, as future healthcare providers, we can best make our patients feel comfortable and safe within the healthcare setting.
So the outcomes of the course were that almost 300 first-year medical, nursing, and dentistry students completed the course.
Because a lot of the course, while it focused specifically on Indigenous patients, can really apply to a lot of different groups as well, particularly where Canada is such a multicultural population.
I want my grandkids and my great-grandkids to be able to go to a doctor and feel fine and feel comfortable and know that this man or this woman is here to help you.
Research. As we turn our attention to research, I want to note our new Research and Innovation Strategic Direction, approved last year. Impact Together was a result of a broad planning process led by our Vice President, Research and Innovation, Dr. Alice Aiken, and her team. The result is a strategic document that grounds our areas of research focus in DAL's priorities and the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and positions our research community to tackle some of our greatest global challenges. The scale of Dalhousie's overall research enterprise has grown dramatically, up 24.5% over the last 5 years, with over $730 million in total research funding. Funding surpassed $168 million in the 2018-19 year. Dalhousie's success rate with core funding, tri-agency programs remains relatively steady. We had a decline in our SHIRC funding success rate this year, but that was following a particularly strong 2017-18. It's not just about research scale, but about finding new ways to work together. For example, we collaborated with other universities and industry to bring the ocean supercluster to the region. Now we're connecting with partners to develop the Nova Scotia Integrated Health Research and Innovation Strategy, linking researchers across disciplines through the Clean Technologies Research Institute, and finding new ways to collaborate with industry partners and others at our Faculty of Agriculture. And for all we're doing that may be new, one thing remains the same. Our researchers here at Dalhousie are recognized as being among the very best in their fields. As many of you know, Dal researchers Ford Doolittle, Axel Becky, and Jeff Don received the NSERC Hertzberg Gold Medals, Canada's top science prize, 3 times in the past 5 years. And 2 of these researchers, Drs. Doolittle and Becky, also won the Killam Prize. During this strategic direction, we also celebrated 9 new Royal Society of Canada Fellows and 11 new inductees into its College of New Scholars, Artists, and Scientists. And this is just a small sample of the many honors bestowed on our accomplished researchers. When it comes to big headlines in Dal research over the past 5 years, I would be remiss not to mention ocean research again, where some of Dal's biggest successes have been launched. Today, Dalhousie sits at the forefront of ocean research, innovation, and discovery, more prepared than ever to harness the potential of the global ocean and ensure its sustainability for future generations. Here's a short video with more on Dalhousie's ocean impact.
So Dalhousie started probably 30 years ago as one of the strongest oceanography departments globally, and it's built from there into a major research hub. The Ocean Tracking Network was among the really early wins. We then built on that with MEAPAR, which is a national network. We were very successful with Doug Wallace's Canadian Excellence Research Chair. And finally, of course, most recently, the Ocean Frontier Institute, which brings University of Prince Edward Island, Memorial University, and Dalhousie together as a large ocean hub in Atlantic Canada, reaching across to our international partners in the US and in Europe.
It's very multidisciplinary community, I should say. I'm particularly encouraged by young professionals here, assistant professors, who are full of new ideas and they're passionate about what they're doing.
I think we're really going full steam ahead, so I want us to keep that momentum. It's honestly so exciting to be part of DAL with the ocean research and the world-renowned research that we do here. I'm so proud to be a researcher at DAL.
Service. The third pillar of Dalhousie's mission is all about what we contribute to our region, our communities, directly and indirectly. You see this in the collaborative efforts to bring major research investment to our region, including more than $300 million in ocean-related R&D during the strategic direction through the supercluster. In fact, over the last 5 years, Dalhousie has consistently accounted for 88% of Nova Scotia's industry-supported research by post-secondary institutions. 88%. You see it in the launch of the new Creative Destruction Lab Atlantic, a partnership that leverages the strengths of the Rowe School of Business to develop new technology-based startups. CDL Atlantic attracted $2.1 million in investment from founders and associates at launch, and in its first 2 years, CDL Atlantic members have invested approximately $7 million into 23 companies that have emerged from the program. $7 million into 23 companies. Companies that invest in local talent and keep young, dedicated people here in the region. You see it in the continued success of our community outreach clinics, like in dentistry, social work, and law, as well as in initiatives like the Imhotep's Legacy Academy and Math Circles that engage young people in learning in new, exciting ways. It's in the opportunities we've created for innovative experiential learning that enables students to engage our community and contribute to the economy. 100% of our students now have access to experiential learning in their programs, and we've seen a 23.8% growth in co-op placements. And you see it in our 4 sandbox spaces in partnership with the province of Nova Scotia, Shift Key Labs in computer science, Cultivate in agriculture, Surge in science, and the Idea Sandbox in engineering. 4 different opportunities spanning disciplines for students and community members to connect, collaborate, and turn their ideas into new products and innovations that improve more than just our region's economy. They improve lives. From the sandboxes to the launch of the Emira Idea Hub, Dalhousie is doing more to directly support economic growth and innovation in our region. Let's see how.
Innovation and entrepreneurship are key ways to grow our economy, and providing the skills and opportunities for students and faculty to translate their ideas into economic impact is an exciting place to be.
The Emira Idea Hub very much meets an economic development mandate, and part of the reason that the hub was created was as a response to the Ivany Report and the One Nova Scotia Call to Action, which called for universities as innovation hubs.
So currently there's no solution for blood sample transport, and we have the solution for it. During transport, things can happen to samples that can affect the quality of the sample.
With the help of our technology, hospitals are going to change the way that samples are being transported, and ultimately this will provide better quality in blood sample processing and lead to better patient care.
It's pretty exciting to start a company here and to actually tap into the local ecosystem.
Our mission is to let everyone experience the beauty and utility of color. And we do that by developing the world's first contact lenses that allow colorblind people to see in color. So Colorsmith maintains as a practice hiring talent from the universities and colleges in the Halifax Regional Municipality. By doing that, we're able to source new, bright, eager people who, just like us, are trying to make a name for themselves and be part of something that's really cool and can change the lives of a lot of people.
Partnership and reputation. The 3 core pillars of our mission are supported by 2 other core areas of the strategic direction. Through the first of these, partnership and reputation, we take our place nationally and internationally. One of the ways we do this is through fundraising. Dalhousie has secured over $210 million, over $210 million in charitable gifts over the past 5 years, exceeding any other 5-year total in Dalhousie's history. This includes the largest ever philanthropic gift from a living donor to the university, $25 million from John Risley to support the Ocean Frontier Institute. The other is by raising our profile, celebrating our achievements, and promoting our successes. Our alumni are key partners in this, with a network of 135,000 around the world, helping share the Dal story and their Dal experience. And of course, last year, Dalhousie hosted one of the biggest celebrations in its history, our 200th anniversary, with more than 80 events and 32,000 participants throughout the year. One of the best ways to see the power of partnership and reputation is in the transformation we've seen on campus over the last 5 years. Dalhousie has completed $310 million in capital construction during this strategic direction. Without donors and community partnerships, projects like the revitalization of the Sexton campus, the renewed Dr. William Murphy Dental Clinic, and our now underway expansion of the Dalhousie Arts Centre simply would not be possible. Let's learn a bit more about how, through partnership, Dalhousie has created a better physical space for everyone across all of our campuses.
We've enjoyed, over the last 5 years, tremendous improvements in the facilities at all of our campuses, both at Halifax and in Bible Hill. We owe a great deal to contributors, public and private, and individual contributors to make these projects a reality.
Student Learning Commons would not have come to fruition without partnerships. And it's clear that students truly appreciate that the partnerships and the fact that the partners and the donors understand and appreciate the importance of this facility for our students and our students' experience.
I think one of the main differences it's made on campuses is it's made group work a lot easier. We have all the little study rooms that have boards that you can write on. There's some with projectors in there, so if you've got like a PowerPoint and you want to look at it, all the students can go and do that, which is really, really nice to have, because we didn't have that before.
I think the two things that really describe the last 5 years here on Sexton campus are growth and renewal. Partners have been so eager to work with us on this project here on Sexton campus because of the importance of engineering in our economy, in our industry, in our business.
The reason why we're doing what we're doing at Imhotep's Legacy Academy is because there's an underrepresentation of people of African heritage in STEM fields and STEM careers. I want to say thank you to those partners who has helped to make this learning center and makerspace a reality for us. It's been of great contribution to the organization and the students that we reach.
You know, I think Dal has tremendous capacity, and as that capacity gets tapped from a research and a commercialization perspective, then industry can benefit from that, and the university can benefit from that, and so that turns into a lovely partnership. Which actually grows our economy here in the region and in Canada generally.
People, infrastructure, and support. The final area of our strategic direction is about the supports and spaces we provide to our community. And since we've already talked about spaces, I want to focus on people. Thanks to the Be Counted census, launched in 2015. We now have self-identification information for 90% of full-time and permanent part-time employees and 71% of students, offering us a better sense of the diversity of our community than ever before. Over the course of this strategic direction, we've consistently exceeded our targets for first-choice candidates recruited, with 89% of first-choice faculty and staff candidates hired this past year. We made significant progress in the hiring of targeted groups, including closing the gap on Indigenous staff hires. There's the new Talent Pathways program, which aims to address employment and systemic barriers and provide opportunities for new and existing talent to grow their careers at Dalhousie. We launched the Dalhousie Legacy Awards, bringing together faculty and staff awards across the university to recognize and celebrate outstanding service to our community. And there are many, many highlights that could be noted under the diversity and inclusiveness strategy, but just to share a few, demonstrating Dalhousie's commitment to respond to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission through curriculum changes and ongoing partnerships and relationship building with Indigenous peoples on campus and in the broader community. Developing both an Indigenous strategy for the university and an African Nova Scotian strategy for Dalhousie, and working to renew Dalhousie's symbols, like the New Dawn staff of place and belonging used at convocation, and re-examining our history with the Lord Dalhousie panel to build a future based on an understanding of our past. This strategic direction covers some incredibly transformative years at Dalhousie. This is challenging work, to be sure, as you all know so well, and there is more to be done. But compiled together, this work represents significant progress on a continuing journey. Let's hear a bit more about some of it.
It's such an interesting process developing this report this year and kind of talking about how I think the conversation has changed with respect to EDI on campus over the course of the past several years. We reached out to all of the leaders, so all of the VPs, deans, AVPs, and said, what's happening in your unit that you want, that you're proud of, that you want us to celebrate in the process of pulling together our progress report.
The NCTR Hub is basically a National Center for Truth and Reconciliation hub. It's a resource point for Indigenous survivors of residential school and their family members to access sensitive records or records that aren't open to the public. And you can smudge here too, which is really great because it's one of the first places on campus internally that you can do that. So I can't tell you the number of times students have come to me and said that they are so happy to have a space like this to use.
Seeing the new spaces added to the student learning commons as a Dalhousie recent grad, what it meant to me was a place for welcoming, a place for support, and a place to be me without any judgment.
My short time of being involved with EDI, I've been very impressed with the amount of work that is being done and the amount of attention that's being given to EDI at all levels.
It's a real privilege to be engaged in that work. I do see it as something that we have committed to as an institution. We've been working hard on to this point.
I'm excited with the fact that Dalhousie is being a leader in EDI across the country, probably internationally, but we'll say right now across the country for sure.
So what's next? I hope you've gotten a sense of how impactful Dal's work under this strategic direction has been. Dalhousie has achieved record enrollment, research income, and fundraising, strengthened academic programs and the physical campus, advanced research and innovation of vital import to the region and the world, and made real progress in creating a Dalhousie where all belong. There are still areas for growth and other areas where we may not be where we want to be just yet. But overall, you can see the momentum with which Dalhousie enters its third century of achievement. For me, it's been an honor and a privilege to be a small part of Dalhousie's story over these past 6 months, and I thank all of you for your contributions. Leading the development of our next strategic plan falls to our Provost, Teri Balser, and I'd like to invite Dr. Balser to share with us an update on that process. Teri.
Thank you very much. And thank you everyone for taking the time to come today. It really is an incredible and exciting accomplishment. I think we can all agree that's a lot. And as I've said throughout the last several months and in the engagement sessions I've been leading, I'm quite sure that the final report is going to be something like this tall in order to accommodate everything that has happened. And so I just want to take a few minutes to share a little bit about the work that we've all been doing over the last semester and ask the question of, right, so what does it all mean? We've done a tremendous amount of work in the last 5 years. There's been a lot of action, a lot of things happening, and when I've gone around and talked to various people, I've gotten to hear a little bit about what we might say is the Richard effect, right? And so we got ourselves up and going and involved, and people were involved in the 100 Days of Listening, and people were involved in the projects that were created and all of the initiatives that we had. It gave us a bit of direction. Where are we going with this? It gave us some, initiatives and more initiatives and more initiatives, right? We had 25 different strategic priorities, that all of which had projects underneath it, all of which, through actually holding ourselves accountable for those outcomes every year, we made substantial progress. So as you saw, there's tremendous progress that we made. There is still, of course, a whole lot more that can be done, and that's always the case. And as we know, anyone that attended any of the engagement sessions that I got to facilitate, we talked a lot about where do we go from here? What do we do? What is next? Where are we going with all of this work that's been done? And so I kind of think of it as we've got ourselves up and in motion now. We've done a tremendous amount, but now what? Where do we take that? Where do we go with it? And so really, as we shift from the previous plan to the next plan, we kind of came up with these ideas of what is it that, and what we have heard from people over and over again, what you've been telling us, what is it that we need to hang on to? What do we need to be doing as we go forward? And these are not in any particular order, but really it's, we know we want to continue to develop a campus climate and culture that welcomes diversity and supports equity, right? And in our retreat, our planning retreat a few weeks ago, we talked about that specifically, that it's the climate and culture that matters so much, along with the visibility and the representation. But without that climate and culture, the numbers don't mean anything. We know that we want to deepen our relationships with the communities, the businesses, the stakeholders, and the citizens of Nova Scotia. So we've done a tremendous amount in engagement and partnerships, but we know that there's a lot more we can do. We have a lot of value that we add to this province and this region, and access to justice, access to health, and access to learning is a critical piece of it. So we know there's a lot that we can do to deepen those relationships. We want to ensure that we're aligning the university infrastructure, our systems, our processes, and our spaces, all of that, to support excellence in our research and teaching. And the word excellence has come up. What does it mean to be an excellent research-focused university? And how do we ensure that we're aligning the resources with the initiatives and the goals? And we want to make sure of that. And then finally, we want to make sure that we're continuing to build the cultural, financial, and physical foundations necessary for agility, adaptability, and long-term sustainability. So we've talked a lot about the long term, being proactive, looking at how the world is coming at us, and making sure that we're positioned to address that and to be agile and adaptable. And think about, what does that mean? What does it mean to be a 200-year-old university that's trying to be agile and adaptive and proactive? So I think this is just sort of a summary of how we shift and we think about pivoting from the 5 pillars that we had to where do we go next. And then, again, many of you have been involved along the way through the last semester. The question then is how do we do that, right? And I was asked by Richard Florazon before he left and when I was hired to take over the planning process leading up to the arrival of our new president, and help us get ourselves further along, keep the momentum going. So phase 1, I've conceptualized it as a number of phases. Phase 1 was this past semester, exploring and listening, and really identifying some of the emerging themes and the things we want to hang on to. Phase 2, we're starting right now, or we're getting into, which is the idea of growing and learning and deepening our understanding of some of the areas that affect us as a university. So things like the changing in publication, open access, things like oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank on some of the many other ideas, but online and the prevalence of online work that's out there. So what do we need to know in order to make good decisions together about initiatives and priorities going forward? So that's phase 2. Phase 3 will start in the fall, and that's when we're actually going to start assembling teams to conduct some self-study and think about really starting to draft a blueprint that will then be engaged when our new president arrives, that he will be engaged in that. And so that phase 4 in that finalization is really going to be in very close collaboration with the the president. So I'll give you a little more detail, but that's just kind of the phases and the way that we're going about approaching this. So far in phase 1, it's been 6 months of exploration, and we had a listening survey that I asked for us to launch before I even came, 37 sessions with our faculty and staff, which was more than 600 people that participated in those sessions. We had a retreat a few weeks ago that was a sort of a half-day workshop that had 200 people attend in the CHEB, which was really fantastic. And what I pulled out of all of that, and I said then, it was that really what came out of it was a sense of pride of being part of Dalhousie, frustration with some of the barriers that we still face, and a lot of hope. And then we also, along the way, with all of those people engaged, had ideas and insight and brilliance and passion and concern and a lot of really open dialogue. There were many times when I was being challenged directly about something and really that we're willing to dig into this, which indicates the fact that we care. If nobody turned up, it would mean we didn't care. If nobody fussed, it would mean we didn't care. So I think it was really indicative of how much caring there is here. And overall, just sort of in general, the themes that kept emerging from all of that was ideas about culture and climate and how do we improve that, as I mentioned. Ideas about modern relevance. What does it mean to be modern and relevant as a 200-year-old university going into our 3rd century and carrying ourselves forward? What does that mean? What is modern and relevant research? What is modern and relevant teaching? What are modern and relevant learning spaces and facilities? And then again, that idea of building foundations for the long term, really thinking about how do we set ourselves up for what's next, and rather than reacting, really being proactive and responding to what we see coming, not just kind of going day to day. So that's really what we've seen in phase 1. Phase 2, the learning circles, right now we've had about a little over 170 people sign up for learning circles. And these were all ideas that were suggested. These are themes that came out of, I don't remember how many specific ideas. We had 50-something specific ideas for learning circles, and we tried to bin them a little bit. And these learning circles are just informal groups of people that get together. We've got a Bright Space site set up that we'll be launching for everyone, and people have registered to be part of one of these themes. And it's just informal work to get together, read articles, have some discussion, and really get ourselves set up to participate in phase 3, where we're starting to make high-level recommendations for the incoming president for the next planning, whatever we call it, framework, plan, thing, living document, call it what you will. So so a lot of these were all ideas that came out of this whole phase 1 listening and exploration. A lot of ideas around supporting our staff, supporting our students, and workplace wellness, campus climate, just a lot of interest there, but also things related to research, solving global challenges, innovation and creativity, ideas around the 4th Industrial Revolution, where is the world going, where are we going to meet that. So this is just phase 2 now, is people being invited into learning circles, and it's not too late, and I'll be sending out the link again for those who lost that email. If you're interested, it's informal, self-organizing over the summer, kind of summer homework. Then we'll come back together in the fall for another workshop, and we'll start phase 3. And in phase 3, what we'll be doing is assembling teams of faculty, staff, and students that are going to engage in a process of self-study, focused on a set of critical questions. And the critical questions are ones that are emerging out of the work that we've done so far. And make high-level recommendations. So it's truly faculty and student and staff driven and run. And so teams working together, facilitated and coordinated through the Provost's office, because it's not just, have at it unsupported, but really the opportunity to drive the process from the ground up. It's modeled after a process that I engaged with at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where I was a faculty co-lead and we had a staff co-lead on a team of 35 people that I had helped assemble that was all faculty, staff, and students. And we generated recommendations for our incoming president focused on the topic of being a welcoming, inclusive, and respectful university campus. And we spent a year actually developing these recommendations and really digging in and diving deep. So that's kind of the idea with this. And so the reason why is to leverage the knowledge, expertise, and lived experience of all of us. There is no one of us at any level at this university that can claim to understand the experience of the collective. And so you know what it's like, where you sit, and what the needs are. And so this is a means and a mechanism to capture that as best as we can. And so how would be the critical questions in team charters that we'll finalize in the fall, and I mentioned the planning retreat that we'll have, and then the teams will be formed shortly after that. So just an example of some of the critical questions that have been emerging. So what does it mean to be a modern and relevant research-focused university? Or how do we balance regional relevance and world-class research, right? So we know that we are critical to our region in a way that many universities aren't. And yet we are also doing world-class research. How do we balance those? So that's one of the critical questions. What is the future of learning and teaching, and how can we best support our students and teachers for long-term success? Another really critical question. Where are we going? What's the future of this? What does a healthy workplace climate and culture look like? And how does this impact wellness, retention, and engagement across the university for all of us? How do we build the cultural, operational, and financial foundations for agility and adaptability in response to changing regional and global drivers? So these are some examples of these kind of higher level critical questions that self-study teams would dive into and engage with and come up with recommendations for the incoming president. So that's just some examples. There are many that have been generated, and those will need to be kind of binned and themed, and hopefully we'll end up with around 7 or 8, and so we can have 7 or 8 teams addressing these. So basically, that's my little snapshot. I want to make sure we've got plenty of time today for questions, so I didn't want to take too much time. And many of you have been involved all the way along and are aware of a lot of this. But really, if you're interested in getting involved, and I very much want to ensure that we capture all the voices. As I said, there's no one person among us that can actually understand fully everyone's experience. So we need everyone involved. So you can get involved by joining a learning circle. You can attend the fall retreat that's coming up. You can email your interest to provost@dal, or there'll be a link again as you register for learning circles, and also just stay tuned. And for those of you who are staff, we are working out ways to arrange and work with the supervisors. So we don't want to exclude people who don't have quite as much discretionary ability to arrange their own time. So please do let us know if that's an issue, and or recognize that we are trying to work to support you as well with that. So anyway, that was my little bit, my sort of what's next infomercial. And happy now, I think, to turn it back over to President MacKinnon, and he'll facilitate a question and answer session. I forgot the agriculture.
Pardon?
I forgot one more slide. I forgot. Well, there we go. Look, here we are. No, please, I forgot, I should have mentioned, we've got our community day coming up at our agricultural campus on Thursday, July 18th. So there's a bus to go up there. If you haven't seen Truro, it's gorgeous. August, it should still be gorgeous. So, please.
Thank you very much, Teri. And my task now is to moderate the question period. As you can see, we have microphones set up in each aisle, and we also have another microphone that can be handed to you in your seats if that is preferable. But it's time now for questions and hopefully some answers. It was all such a model of clarity.
My name is Kate Summers. I'm from the Office of Advancement. My question is both to Peter and to Teri, because you're both joining us from several institutions across the country and around the world. I'm wondering if you can comment on any particular strengths that you have seen in your time at Dalhousie so far, or any particular areas of opportunity and growth for us in the future as we move on.
Well, it's a great question, by the way, and one of the things that I've said in a number of different settings in the time that I've been here is that Dalhousie's reputation and its stature is, I think, greater than is sometimes appreciated right here. I know we're all proud of it. I know we're all impressed by Dal and by what it does. But its reputation and stature, I can tell you, across this country and beyond, they are excellent. And I think that is a huge strength. Reputation matters so much in this activity of post-secondary education, and it's going to matter even more in the future. So I would really stress as a positive, as a strength, the reputation and name of this university. The fact that we have been able to show enrollment growth in a challenging local recruiting environment is itself significant. Why? Because it's Dalhousie. The fact that we've been able to have the kind of research successes that are recorded here, because Dalhousie has the facilities and the capacity, and particularly important, the people on whom you can build a reputation, a great reputation for research excellence. I think the future of Dalhousie is unlimited. Unlimited. And it depends on how all of us work and build it in the years to come.
And I'll add to that as well. I agree completely. And in my experience coming here from another part of the world, one of the things that has really struck me the most is, as I've said a few times, Dal has not forgotten that it's a university. And there are places where that has come to pass, where they've forgotten what it means to be an institution of higher learning, what it means to contribute to the discovery of new knowledge and the dissemination and the mobilization of that new knowledge, which is really fantastic here. So there's an incredible strength of research, but I also would like to point out that one of the things that stands out related to that is the amazing social conscientiousness that this university has that many other universities don't have. It's really a way that we stand out. And then on top of that, we have some of the most amazing students. And we really do. And compared to many of the other places I've been, they really do have the potential to change the world. And we are providing that education, challenging them, and allowing them to develop that. And that's really something that I see as an incredible strength here that I have not seen at other places. So I think we're changing the world in more ways than one, and we have this amazing potential through our researchers and through our students both. And of course, I know everybody hears me say this all the time, it can't be done without all of us, right? Without all the staff involved to help make it all happen. So I just, this whole place, there's so much potential.
Thank you.
Over here, hey, Peter.
Yes.
So we're taking questions online, both from email and on social media. This is an email question that came in. Is there a plan for using the results of the accessibility audit that's underway after it's completed?
Ian Nason.
Well, good morning. The answer to the question is absolutely. We are required to prepare a plan under the Act. That plan will form the basis for work that will be undertaken in years to come. There are going to be some dates and deadlines by which Dalhousie has to meet some levels of compliance, and we will work to do that.
Thank you, Ian.
I was wondering, I know oceans have been a big focus for the last couple of years here, and I was wondering if there's other areas that you think will emerge in the next couple of years.
Well, I certainly think there's more than one. Obviously, oceans has been much celebrated, and rightly so. But one of the other areas in which I think a fair amount of work has already been done, more remains to be done, is in the capacity of growing and integrating Dalhousie's health-related programs and aligning them with what is necessary to improve the public health in Nova Scotia and in the Atlantic region. Again, we've always had very, very good academic health programs, but developing them in ways which will further advance the health of the citizens of Nova Scotia and the Atlantic region, more broadly too, of course, but particularly this region, I think that's a huge potential. Another area, by the way, and forgive me, I come from a university, the University of Saskatchewan, with a huge agricultural footprint, massive. And coming down here, visiting the Truro campus, which has now been consolidated as an agriculture faculty of our university, I think that affords another set of tremendous opportunities for Dalhousie. And already discussions have begun, and I know Matt Hebb and others have been involved in that, about how can we develop that campus and the existing capacity here to better align with, promote, inspire the development of agriculture and aquaculture in this region. So those are just a couple more that come off the top of our heads. I think again, there are potentially any number. Wherever you have really good people hard at work, you can develop all kinds of ideas about crafting and advancing the future. Thank you for the question.
Peter, did you want me to further on the research question? Or?
Absolutely.
So just to comment on this research question, Dr. Aiken and I often get this. What else can Dalhousie do beyond oceans research? And before we think about beyond oceans research, we should remind ourselves how amazing we've done in oceans research. It's a remarkable play that Dalhousie has made over the last 5 to 10 years. That is, I'm often awestruck by when I go to Ocean Tracking Network meetings, MEOPARM meetings, that how incredible this team is. And I often think to myself that the oceans research community, first of all, it was established by people like Matt and others in our community that have been, and our oceans researchers that have really led the way. And we've taken a lot of learning from that in the research office. And it's, you can think about it as a star player on a team or a star actress. My wife and I are watching Big Little Lies right now, and we're struck by how amazing Meryl Streep is as an actress and how everyone else is somehow better because Meryl Streep is there. And I think oceans research does that for us at Dal. She is our Meryl Streep in that last week the Clean Technologies Research Institute had an annual workshop. The Clean Technologies Research Institute this year. We have several New Frontiers winners at Dalhousie. The New Frontiers Research Fund had a competition success rate of less than, Nancy, I think less than 7% or 8%. At Dal, we were 17%. So our early career researchers, among those that we submitted, 17% were successful, double the national average. A number of those were in the clean technology research space. One of our researchers, Dr. Mita Desog, is wanting to study a project that is, she's trying to invent a new way to create ammonia. And you think, well, what does that have to do with clean technologies? Ammonia, the sheer generation of ammonia, occupies 2% of the world's energy. So the world's energy is devoted to creating ammonia. And she's come up with a way where not only can she lower the amount of energy input to create ammonia, she's made it so that it can be deployed virtually anywhere. So to support agriculture, as Peter was talking about, we could see some really nice harmonies between the clean technology research space and the ag space. So Dalhousie, really, we are in a nice area where our clean technology space can bounce off our agriculture space with a lot of know-how and learning that our ocean community has brought to us. So I think we've really got a bright future over the next 5 to 10 years as we talk further. Thank you.
I agree with that. I think it's important to remember, though, that you don't just have these pockets that develop at an institution and they're the only ones. They're built on a broad base of research strength and excellence. And Dalhousie has that broad base of research strength and excellence. And I think it's important to nourish that and make sure that it continues to exist, because it will provide not only the base but the inspiration for so many of these other activities. Other questions? Go ahead.
Well, I want my microphone moment.
You want your microphone moment? You can have it.
For the people on the live stream, of course. It's not all about me. I'm Lyle Quinn with Communications and Marketing. And I think for many of us, the strategic direction, our strategic priorities, and the pillars in which we've been guided over the last 5 years is very much what I expect the Magna Carta was back in the day. It's kind of how we prioritize what we're doing. It's how we really apply our strategic direction to our work. And I know that our path forward in renewing the strategic direction is very much underway. But is there a sense yet around, will there be a really dramatic shift, even, around what those pillars might be? Or are we looking at a bit of a smaller kind of pivot towards some of our strengths?
Teri.
Sure. That's a great question, and I think there's the work that we've done is never finished. The pillars are not irrelevant now that we are finishing a 5-year kind of time horizon, and so it's not a dramatic shift. There will likely be changes in the wording of things. We won't, so there'll be smaller changes in terms of how it's framed and communicated, but I don't see that there's any need for dramatic changes. Nothing that we've been discussing is anything more than what do we need to do next? How do we keep the good work going? So I don't see anything coming that's radical. We're not going to suddenly get rid of oceans research and start something else, aerospace engineering or something like that. Right? We'll stay with what our strengths are.
Thank you. Long trip to the microphone.
Misha halfway. Okay, sorry, just had a quick question about whether we've thought about how or if or when we might capture the student voice in developing the future strategic direction. Obviously, we're all here because, the students are here and we all have jobs because the students come to university at Dalhousie. So I just think it's really important that we hear their unique perspective and voice. So I don't know how or if we're doing that, but I just think that it should be something we consider.
Absolutely, that's also a really great point and well made, and is something that we've been discussing, working on what's the best mechanism, because the students are taking classes. The students will be invited to be part of the self-study teams, but I also have been working on more broadly and more consistently, not just in a planning process, but how to productively engage with our students. Every time that we've had them involved with us in the budget workshops and various things that we've done, they have fantastic ideas. They provide really important input, and so we're working on different mechanisms for engaging the students. We don't have very many that are formalized at the moment, but it is not lost or forgotten in any way. And if anyone has brilliant ideas, maybe that can be a learning circle. How to involve students productively in strategic planning process. Happy to hear ideas about it, but thank you for raising it.
Other questions, remaining questions?
Hi, I'm from Facilities Management, Mary Jane Weber. So further to that, how do we include our unionized staff more in this? And I know a couple of them went to one of Teri's presentations, but it's great that we see this many people here. I always wish there were more and more of my colleagues, but they're kind of hamstrung. They only get a 15-minute break in the morning. They get a half hour at lunch. Chloe was asking how we can include more of them, and we're a bit stymied. So if you have any suggestions for that or some examples from the other places you've worked, we're always looking for help.
It's another really good point, and it's another one that we've discussed a little bit, and many of the staff have raised they've raised the points. I don't want to say concerns, not really concerns, but the points about the breaks and constraints that they're working under, as well as a sense of safety, whether their voice is actually going to be welcomed in different settings. And so it's something that we've been starting to raise as well, whether we have a slightly different self-study process that involves the unionized staff so that they can participate. Chris Hetty and I have also been speaking about how do we work with the supervisors under what are the constraints or what are the parameters that we can work with. But it is something also very much on our minds, is how do we ensure that we are genuinely engaging everyone. And it might not be the exact same mechanism for everyone. It might be that we need to do something slightly different for different groups so that they don't get left out. So, thank you.
Thank you, Teri.
Hi, I'm Laura with Government Relations, and I just had a question for Teri. I noted in the overview that Peter gave that there was quite a lot of new programs, majors, minors, created over the last 5 years. And I wondered if you could comment on whether that was a normal rate of growth or whether that was perhaps larger than normal. I know a lot of work goes into creating those, and that seemed like a large number.
From what I've seen so far for our processes for creating new things, that's actually tremendous to get all of that done in such a short period of time. But I think I actually had a question when I was looking at it as well, because I haven't been here throughout the entire process. It is a large number. I would love to see us now take a look at, is it the right ones and the right number, and did we let go of other things? Because there is a genuine, universities, we love to build things as if they're going to last forever. And they don't. And so some of this looking at being agile and adaptable is also looking at, can we speed up our processes? Can we find ways to have processes or approvals for things not only go faster, but that maybe there's a trial period or there's some other way that we can approach things. And so, yes, it is a large number, and I'm quite sure that I mean, some of the ones that I've seen are in fantastic new areas, but we want to be asking ourselves, are we letting go of things we need to let go of? And that's a really hard question. We don't like letting go of things at universities, and that may be another area that we look at when we look at being modern and relevant in terms of our teaching and learning. But it's a really important question to ask.
We shall entertain one more question. If there is one.
Hello, I'm Robert Moffat with Ancillary Services. I just wanted to ask, in the 6 months you've been here, can you just speak to some of the highlights that you personally had in serving as interim president here?
It's not an easy question to answer. When you're invited to undertake an assignment such as this, a limited term assignment from a considerable distance. I live in Western Canada now. You think of it, it's a package. It's a 6-month package. You go down, you do the work as best you can, and then you pack up and leave. You discover, actually, that after time, that it's much more complicated than that. It's much more difficult than that, because you're coming into an environment which, for me, has been a very exciting environment. By the way, a very positive environment. You are reunited with parts of your past, if you like, and you realize once again how much they mean to you in the present, and as you look at this university, as you think about its future. So I would say not a single highlight, being here, being at the university after I graduated exactly 50 years ago this spring, coming back to Dalhousie, seeing it now. Halifax, by the way, I loved Halifax when I was a student here, but it's an even more attractive city now than it was when I was a student here. And the province and the region, I'm originally from Prince Edward Island, so I know how beautiful and how powerful is the impact of the province and region. I think all of those are highlights, and I will treasure every one of them. So that is a signal to wrap up, and I'm told that I too should remind you about the agricultural campus, the community day on the campus, and invite you to be there. But most of all, I want to, on behalf of all of us in the administration, and certainly in my own name, to thank you so much for coming out and spending the last hour here. There is a reception in the lobby. Please join us for continuing informal conversation. Thank you all very much.
Well done.